And I came across a graph today on Business Insider. It shows just how deep the job losses were during each economic crisis. First thing I noticed was just how bad it's been this time. And the next thing I noticed was that the losses have been deeper and slower to recover with each subsequent crisis, more or less. I was curious why that is, so I asked Daniel Lacalle. He's chief economist at the Tressis hedge fund.
The reason why we get out of every crisis in a completely weaker way, particularly for the job creation. We start with a bigger loss and then the recovery is slower, is fundamentally because injecting monster amounts of liquidity and increasing government spending delivers afterwards a much weaker result in terms of both job creation and real wages for most workers.
So I assume we've had some form of stimulus during all of these crises, but why does it seem to be getting worse with each one?
This is very interesting. The reason, because every time the stimulus is larger. The stimulus is not only larger, but more directed towards incentivizing government spending and protecting bloated government spending. Those two elements make the recovery weaker. In fact, if you look at it, it is a transfer of wealth from the savers and from real wages to government and its crony sectors. So the larger the stimulus, the weaker the recovery. That doesn't mean that there doesn't have to be a stimulus. Let's not get things incorrectly. One thing is to have some form of stimulus to allow the economy to recover, and another completely different is what we have seen, for example, in some of the proposals of the Democrat Party and the Labour Party in the UK or in the United States, which is to basically use crisis to increase government spending in things that have nothing to do with the crisis at any cost.
And one point you touched on just now was that a lot of these stimulus packages tend to benefit, we'll call it the people at the top or the people who have access to it. I believe there's a term I've heard called the Cantillon effect, maybe. Is this really the case, and where do we see it exactly?
Well, think about it. When you inject massive amounts of liquidity very early on in a crisis and you increase government spending immediately, who gets benefited? The public sector and those that have access to debt and that have access to assets. At the same time, what we see is a very quick recovery in financial asset prices, in bonds and equities. Therefore, who benefits? Money creation is never neutral. Therefore, it always disproportionately benefits the first recipients of the money created, and the ones that pay for it are the last recipients of that money. So who are the first recipients of newly created money, artificial money creation? Government and financial markets. Who are the last recipients? The workers, salaries, and small businesses.
I appreciate your balanced analysis as always, Daniel. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much. Always a pleasure.